Hey, good evening everybody. Tonight I'm going to show you how to make beef stew. Just checking to make sure I got everything here. There's quite a few ingredients on the counter because this is going to make 5 quarts of stew. Now, when I was young, there was a time when I used to live on those cans of beef stew, the really scary ones that said they had beef in it and you never knew what part of the cow it was from. And that's all I knew, you know. And then after a time, I tried to make beef stew, and I thought I did, but I didn't really. And now I know how to make beef stew, and I'm going to show you, and if you follow this method, it'll come out for you every time. Now, I always use frozen stew beef. I buy this in bulk. This is a 1 kilo tray, which is about 2 pounds and a bit. It is just defrosted. If you're in a rush, because this does take quite a while to cook, and I'll get to that after, if it's a little frozen in the middle, that's not bad. Because what that means is you'll have more control over the initial frying process, and there's less chance of smoking and burning, which is good all around. Now, if you don't have beef bouillon that you can mix with water, just get yourself a quart or a liter of the pre-done stuff. I would use the low sodium, but that's my preference. So here's the rest of the ingredients. First step is going to be dredge the beef and fry it. Now by all means, feel free to dredge your beef on a plate. I far prefer using a Ziploc because it's just not so messy. And I also use gloves to handle the meat. Once your half cup of flour is in there, put in some salt. There is salt in the bouillon, so I don't want to put too much. A generous amount of black pepper. If you're feeling adventurous, you can add a bit of cayenne. Not necessary. Parsley for sure. About a tablespoon. Chives if you've got them. I use freeze-dried. Close the bag, shake that up. Some of you may be going, oh my goodness, I am never going to eat that much stew, I'm going to freeze this. Now, if you are planning to do that, the sauce will likely not have the same consistency when you reheat it. Though, you know, if you do it carefully on a stovetop with a bit of water and some stirring, it should be okay. This does keep several days in the fridge and just keeps getting better and better, it seems. And depending on how many people you've got, it may not last all that long. Now you'll notice I am not trimming this at all. You want all the fat and all the connective tissues, the fat for the flavors and the spices, and the connective tissue really helps the consistency of the stew. Plus it's really good for you. Once that bit's done, shake it thoroughly. And don't worry about it too much if you coat every piece, because all the flour is going in the pan. Heat a pan over medium-high. Get your butter. And just a splash of oil. So the butter doesn't burn initially. Just that. A couple of teaspoons or a tablespoon should do it. Wait for that to melt. And when the butter is just about melted but has not started to brown, which is important, toss all the beef in, including the flour. You can hear the water going in the back because I'm going to just mix up my bouillon in a minute. One thing I love about this recipe is that you can cook it as you do your prep, which doesn't happen all that often, but it's quite nice. Now the downside of this recipe is you do have to check on it every 20 minutes or so. I have tried this in the slow cooker. It just does not come out the same as stovetop. But trust me, a few hours on simmer, just sit and watch a movie or whatever, and set the alarm on your phone and just come back to it every 20 minutes or so. You'll be really glad you did. You'll see at the end. I started to mix my bouillon. I got a big spoon of that stuff. This is honestly too much for the package directions, but I will be adding extra water as we go along, and I want to get all the beef flavor in right at the beginning. If you have lots of bouillon around your house, you can use more than 1 liter, depending on how much your recipe is needing it. I find you're just fine with 1 liter to start and then water after. So that's going to be good enough. Check on the meat again. While that's frying, I'll just rinse, trim, and slice my mushrooms. I like using the big cremini brown mushrooms. They have more flavor and you don't have to cut as many of them. What I do is I'll just break the stem off, cut the darkened end off, and toss that bed. And then take the other ones and just cut them in 4s like that. All the mushrooms are chopped, so it's time to check on the beef again. Okay, so the defrosting edge has worn off, and time to turn on the fan. It may smoke for a little bit at the beginning, not to worry. And don't worry about any of that stuff at the bottom of the pan either. That is all your flavor, and that's actually your sauce. So don't try to scrape that up or clean it out, because you're throwing your stew away if you do that. Okay? Just a little patience here. Even if this seems tiresome at the beginning, what you have to remember is the longer you cook your meat at the beginning, the less time you will have to have it on the stove after that. But there is also a fine line between trying to beat the clock and end up burning your sauce. This will take a bit of practice. So I'm going to err on the side of longer, because I'm home all evening and it's not a problem. See, at home I can still say problem. You have to say challenge at work, right? That beef is all dissolved nicely. Put all that in at once. And I'll rinse that out with a bit of water after. Now you can't see it, but you're going to have to feel around the bottom with your spatula. I got a plastic one, which works fine for me. If you're brand new, I would recommend stainless steel. It'll make a bit more noise, but you'll be able to feel the bottom of the pan better and get off any stuck-on bits. And it is now safe to turn the fan off. You won't be needing that anymore. You can actually hear the crunchy bits at the bottom coming off. Now before I put the vegetables in, what I'll do now is get my seasonings in there. A teaspoon of garlic powder, teaspoon of dried mustard powder, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. This is a lot of stew. Just give that a quick stir. You can see the sauce starting to thicken up already. 5½ ounce can of tomato paste. I use the organic no salt kind. And you know, once you start cooking like this, you'll realize you actually really don't need that much salt. It's not just a health issue, you actually don't need it in your food once you've started getting used to not having it every day. Now I can see how thick that's getting already, so I'm not going to bother to worry about whether all the tomato paste has stirred in yet, because I need more water in that pan. And at first, I'm going to get it from the vegetables. Mushrooms have a lot of water, so those go in first. I'm going to turn that down to medium. You don't want it getting too rambunctious, and you got to remember, when you stir the bottom of the pan as well. Because when it gets this thick, it will. This is why you have to stir it every 20 minutes. Because it will stick on if you just forget about it. You can always transfer pans if you have to, but it's far better to just watch it than rescue it. These are a real quick chop, just quarters. Gee, it looks like stew already. We're not even done yet, eh? So onions, carrots, peas. I put the peas in frozen because that brings the temperature in the pan down temporarily so that you have a grace period to get the stuff off the bottom if you need to. Sauce is looking a little thick, so I'm going to get the rest of this out of here with a bit more water. 2 cups should do it at this point. You do want to leave room for the potatoes. Put a lid on it while you get your potatoes ready. Won't take too long. I don't peel my potatoes for this. Fiber's good for you and it's a lot less work. So after you wash them, cut any obviously bad bits off and then chop them up into bite-sized pieces about the same size as the stewing meat. There's all the potatoes. Let's set those aside for a second, check on the stew. Put those in. And we're done. I mean, it's not cooked yet, but that's the end of your prep. So I'll set my alarm and come back in stages. First hour is gone. You can start to see it looking a bit different. Okay, 2 hours in, let's see where we are. You can see all that stuff at the top. That is the tomato paste dissolved in the fat that has come off the meat. It seems watery at the top. As soon as I put the spatula in, I can feel it thicken up near the bottom. It's not stuck on too bad, which is great. Let's see where we are. So I can see the potatoes are cooked, that's fine. The carrots are cooked as well. Okay, so the last thing to check is how's the meat. Just get a piece on your plate, get the spatula, and try to cut down through it. You can see how rubbery that is, and it's not going. This should be falling apart when it's cooked. That means there's still connective tissue that hasn't gone into the sauce yet. No issues. We've got another hour to go. I wasn't really expecting it right now. Now, if you're starved and you can't stand it anymore, yeah, you can eat now, but just like be prepared for really chewy meat. We are at the 3-hour mark, so you can actually see, I'll zoom. You can actually see, it's a little steamy, but, there you go. Yeah. Those streaks you see on the top are actually the connective tissue that is going to make the stew so thick when it cools down. When you cook it long and slow like this, the collagen actually comes right out of the meat. And the bottom is not stuck. It's a little gummy, but any of that flour is going right back into the sauce, which is just awesome. This is a success that I can see so far. Last thing is the final test of the meat. There's a nice chunk, I can see it right there. So here, let's go right through. Perfect. You can see that. I don't even have to taste it. Okay, I will. This is a 3 stew. This takes quite a while to cool off. I will plate some in a bowl just so you can see it under a better light. Luckily, it is minus 12 degrees centigrade where I am, so I'm going to be popping this on the back porch in the pan to cool off. You definitely want to cool this off before you freeze it. I'm going to be keeping this in the fridge. I have room, and it just stays so much better when you heat it up, either in the microwave. If you're going to heat it in a pan, just put a little bit of water in it so it doesn't stick, and reheat it on low. So let's take a look at this. And of course, when you're getting a nice bowl of stew like this, you want to make sure you get everything. Just be careful when you do this, because if you've got your finger at the top of the bowl, yes, you're going to burn yourself. This stuff is boiling hot, literally. Maybe a piece of meat right on the top. There we go. There's my beef stew. It really is worth the effort and the time. So much better than the stuff you can buy at the store. And if you're worried about the expense or having too much food, hey, get some friends together, bring some ingredients over, throw a stew party, and everybody can go home with some. Or make lots of room in your fridge, and you won't mind eating this for a few days at least. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you try it. Hope to see you again.